There have been stories going around since 2016, 2017, that Ilhan Omar married her brother. Now, it's not quite as gross as it seems, I guess. The allegation is not that she married her brother because she fell in love with him, but that she married her brother to commit immigration fraud.
The administration is going to possibly look into immigration fraud committed by Ilhan Omar by possibly marrying her brother. Tax fraud?
Well, there's a lot of talk about the fact that she was married to her brother. I know nothing about it. I hear she was married to her brother. You're asking me a question about it. I don't know, but I'm sure that somebody would be looking at that.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar spent the last 2 years denying serious allegations that she married her own brother so he could stay in the United States.
It's a story that won't go away. Ilhan Omar, Democrat, married her brother, they say. And according to an old report from just about 4 years ago, there's DNA evidence. Now, this is coming from an individual who claims that they acquired DNA, got it tested, and said, oh, hey, look, they're brother and sister. And Ilhan Omar married her brother to help him get legal papers to reside in the United States.
Tell me definitively or not, is Ahmad Elsi your brother?
For the markup?
Yeah. Is he your brother?
We're in the middle of the legislative briefing.
Is he your brother?
We're going to which one?
It's Foreign Affairs. I'll go with you. Can you tell me definitively, yes or no, is he your brother? And why can't you answer that question?
The remarks you gave me earlier.
Why did you refer to him as your child's uncle on Instagram? And why did you lie on court documents saying that you hadn't seen him since 2011, when in fact you'd been talking to him all the time on Instagram?
Sir, we're not doing ambush interviews.
This isn't an ambush.
You can send me an email.
Why are you so afraid to answer these questions?
So did Representative Ilhan Omar marry her brother to get him into the country and therefore committed a crime, which is immigration fraud? Let's talk about it. This is U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar. She represents Minnesota's 5th congressional district. Now, Representative Ilhan Omar is not a stranger to controversy. She has said many things that even her own party, the Democratic Party, had to condemn her for. Here's a quick look.
Following outrage from Jewish members in her own party, today Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is attempting to clarify, saying she was in no way equating terrorist organizations with democratic countries with well-established judicial systems. At issue, this controversial tweet Omar posted on Monday, appearing to liken American and Israeli atrocities with those of Hamas and the Taliban. Quote, we must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity, Omar tweeted. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban, including a video of this question she posed to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken.
In both Palestine and in Afghanistan, I haven't seen any evidence in either cases that domestic courts both can and will prosecute alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. This includes crimes committed by both the Israeli security forces and Hamas. In Afghanistan, it includes crimes committed by the Afghan national government and the Taliban.
A number of Jewish House Democrats immediately slammed the Congresswoman, calling it offensive and misguided and saying she needs to clarify her words. Omar quickly fired back, saying it is shameful for her colleagues to put out a statement and not just call her directly. Quote, the Islamophobic tropes in this statement are offensive. The constant harassment and silencing from the signers of this letter is unbearable. That doing little to quell Democratic criticism. In 2019, Omar was forced to apologize after Democrats accused her of anti-Semitism for using this anti-Semitic trope, suggesting that congressional support for Israel was all about the Benjamins, baby.
Her remarks were reprehensible.
The House voting on 2 different resolutions in response to the Congresswoman's comments, broadly condemning hate and anti-Semitism.
These words have a history and a cultural impact that may have been unknown to her.
And Speaker Pelosi and other House Democratic leaders have responded to Congresswoman Omar's clarification this afternoon, saying in part, quote, drawing false equivalencies between democracies like the U.S. and Israel and groups that engage in terrorism like Hamas and the Taliban for men's prejudice. We welcome the clarification by Congresswoman Omar.
Now, for the past 5 to 6 years, there have been rumors going around that Representative Omar had married her brother in order to get him legal status here in the United States. This is the Minnesota Star Tribune, and in 2019 they did this article that says new documents revisit the question about Representative Ilhan Omar's marriage history. All right, so now I've gathered all the evidence and I'm going to present it to you, and you come to your own opinion whether it's true if Ilhan Omar married her brother so he can get to the United States. So let's start at the beginning. In 2002, a 19-year-old Omar religiously married Hamed Hershey, and he's 22 years old. Now, they're married religiously, but not legally. From 2002 to 2008, the couple have 2 children together. Now, in 2008, Omar and Harish, they separate in a religious ceremony. Then in 2009, Omar legally marries this man named Ahmed Elmi. He's a British citizen. Now, while married to Elmi, she actually has another child with Harishi. Now, fast forward to 2011, Omar and Elmi now separate religiously, but they still remain legally married. Now, in 2014 and 2015, while Omar is still married to Elmi, she files joint tax returns with Harishi. In 2016, Omar is elected to the Minnesota House. Then, in 2017, she then legally divorces Elmi. Then in 2018, she remarries her first husband, Harishi, who she has 3 kids with. She's elected to Congress. Then she files for divorce from Harishi in 2019. Now, for those of you who don't know, since Omar was running for federal office, the Republicans now were going into her background to find out what type of person she was and to see if they can dig up some dirt on this Democratic candidate. So then the Republicans find this community leader. His name is Osman. He's actually here pictured with Harishi and Omar. Now, this community leader claims that Elmi is actually Omar's brother.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar spent the last 2 years denying serious allegations that she married her own brother so he could stay in the United States.
Laura, when the accusation was first made a few years ago, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tried to knock it down by calling it absurd. Well, now others are talking, like Abda Hakim Azman, a prominent member of the Minneapolis Somali community who is now on the record telling the Daily Mail that in 2009, Ilhan Omar married her biological brother Ahmed Saeed Almi.
Now, just because some guy says that's true doesn't mean it's actually true. But if there was a way you can verify it, then that would work too. So the conservative group decided to get their DNA. See, if they can get DNA from both Elmi and Omar, they can match it, and the DNA results would definitively show if they're related.
Randa Devine is an actual journalist. She works at the New York Post, where she writes a column. She joins us tonight to explain what exactly happened. Randa, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure, Tucker. Well, some basically Republican operatives up in Minnesota decided to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on private investigators to really find out if Ilhan Omar was a genetic match, the DNA match to the man who was her second husband. They went to 3 continents. They found a cigarette butt and a drinking straw, which they decided, they sent it to a DNA laboratory and found conclusively that the DNA matched, that the second husband was a sibling.
So after all of that came out, the FBI started reviewing the claims that Ilhan Omar had married her brother. Now, this is where things get a little bit confusing. Remember the conservatives that found the DNA evidence to prove that Ilhan Omar's brother was her husband? Well, the FBI wind up arresting those guys when they were about to put out the conclusive DNA evidence. Here's what happened.
So it's been known for quite a while that Ilhan Omar apparently married her own brother to help him gain entry illegally into the country. That's a violation of immigration law. That actually happened, it turns out. And now we're learning the FBI had evidence to confirm it, but didn't do anything about it.
The very day that they were going to unleash this on the world, and in fact I was interviewing one of the people involved, the FBI swooped on the gentleman, Anton Lazaro, from this Republican PAC up in Minnesota, and arrested him on some different charges. Who knows whether he's guilty or not guilty. I mean, he's not guilty until proven, but he's in jail. And so his story never got to see the light of day. I mean, luckily he'd told the FBI they were not interested. They told him the statute of limitations had run out. We managed to see the website before he took it down, before he was arrested, and managed to report the story such as it was.
Now, this is where I got to call out Fox News for the spin, because they know Anton Lazaro was sentenced for sex trafficking minors and did a huge sentence. But obviously they don't want to tell you that because it hurts the credibility of the story. But I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. So here's the clip.
He was a powerful GOP donor and political operative, and now he'll be spending 21 years in prison. Anton Lazaro was sentenced today for sex trafficking minors after he was found guilty of those crimes in March. Fox 9's Karen Scullin now with what happened in court and how he got to this point. Karen?
32-year-old Anton Tony Lazaro will be 51 years old when he gets out of federal prison. From there, it's 5 years on supervised release.
Anton Tony Lazaro was becoming a big GOP donor and political activist in Minneapolis, but now he's heading to prison. Prosecutors say Lazaro targeted young girls and gave the 15 and 16-year-olds cash and gifts, and in exchange, the girls would Uber to his upscale condo for sex. Today, federal prosecutors said Anton Lazaro was a predator who hid in plain sight. He was a sex trafficker who camouflaged his true nature with his wealth and privilege. The case started back in August of 2021 when Lazaro was arrested, leading to a shakeup in the GOP, including the resignation of party chair Jennifer Carnahan. She and Lazaro were close friends, but she has said she had no knowledge of his illegal activities. Following that, more details of Lazaro's scheme unfolded. He would use then 18-year-old Gisela Castro Medina to recruit the young girls, usually through social media. She was ultimately paid $50,000 by Lazaro for her efforts, but testified against him at his March trial, where he was eventually found guilty. The sentencing judge commented on the soulless, mechanical nature of Mr. Lazaro's crimes, like a sex trafficking assembly line, adding that the only two people Mr. Lazaro showed any remorse for were himself and Jeffrey Epstein, who Mr. Lazaro called his brother. Lazaro has maintained he did not know the girls were underage.
All right, so here's just a quick recap of everything we just heard. Ilhan Omar was married to husband one. I'm gonna call him husband one so we can just keep everything simple. Husband one. While married to husband one, she then divorces him and marries husband two, which is supposed to be her brother. While she's married to husband two, she's filling out joint tax returns with husband one. She's having another kid with husband one. And eventually, she legally divorces husband two and then remarries husband one again. So it almost seems like she was never really divorced from husband one. She just kind of played this game that I'm going to divorce him so I can marry husband two, and then she's back with husband one. So the FBI then taking up the investigation, but then arresting the guy who actually got the DNA evidence, and DNA evidence saying that 99.9% purity that she is this guy's brother. So she hasn't sued anybody for defamation. She hasn't said the story is false and here's the evidence why it's false. It's just kind of out there. Now, the FBI hadn't really come back and said, hey, we investigated and we found that this is nonsense. They just, well, again, it was under the Biden administration they were investigating it. It seems to be just up in the wind. So no one knows where this case is at now. Hopefully Trump and his team will conclusively put an end to this, whether it's true or not true. But the facts seem pretty convincing. I would like you to tell me where I'm, number one, where I'm wrong in this conversation. Number two, what do you think about these facts? Do you think it's convincing? Does this convince you that she married her brother, or is it kind of like, she may or may not have? Because immigration fraud is a big thing, and that can put you behind bars. And as the FBI was saying, there was like this statute of limitations, but that was for the state charges. There's really no statute of limitations for immigration fraud. So we'll see what happens with that. Well, if you like this video, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all the great YouTube stuff. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section. As always, my name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you in the next one.